I'm Cameron Swayze.
Chet Huntley.
David Byrne. John Chancellor.
Tom Brokaw.
Prayers and preparations. Here in Rome, the Pope is honored by those who knew him. While the world mourns, Catholics and non-Catholics from Chicago to Krakow, millions who felt they knew him pause for prayer. An NBC News exclusive tonight. Our cameras are at the scene following a brazen attack in Iraq as dozens of insurgents try to blast their way into Abu Ghraib. Does this signal a change in their tactics? And in the wrong hands, the new president of Ukraine tells NBC News his nation sold missiles to Iran. How did it stay secret?
This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams reporting tonight from the Vatican.
Good evening. It was not as if his death was unexpected, and yet so many people in this city, so many people around the world today found that the sight of Pope John Paul II lying in state was something they were not prepared for. Tonight, the lights in the papal apartments here at the Vatican are now dark. And as much as the people of this city so often find themselves coming to St. Peter's Square on a weekend evening like this one, this is different. This is a city surprised at its own reaction to the death of their Pope. That has been a lot of the case around the world this day after his death. We will begin our coverage here in Rome tonight with NBC's Jim Maceda. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. The Catholic Church and over 1 billion of its followers began 9 days of mourning today, many trying to come to terms with the loss of the only pope they've ever known. Over 100,000 pilgrims turned St. And Brian, in the immediate future, Rome is bracing for what could be a record-breaking invasion. Over 2 million pilgrims are now expected for the funeral. Brian?
Jim Maceda here with us in Rome tonight. Thanks. In countless houses of worship at so many places, the Pope was mourned around the planet today. From Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, where the mighty bells tolled for him, to Cuba, where President Fidel Castro has declared 3 days of mourning. Even in Beijing, where the Communist Party cut off ties with the Vatican back in 1949, the government expressed its official condolences and said it hoped to improve relations with the new Pope. Prayers were offered in South Africa as well. And in the Pope's homeland of Poland, from small villages to the capital city, an overwhelming outpouring of emotion today for their icon and a final wish that is not likely to come true. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is in Krakow for us again tonight.
Across the country this Sunday. At St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, the afternoon mass was so crowded that an overflow crowd of hundreds prayed outside in the rain.
It was like my obligation.
In Chicago, families mourned together. He is being honored not only within the confines of the traditional Catholic Church, but by a much more diverse America, by members of other faiths and ethnic groups, like here in New York's Chinatown. The Mass at this Chinese-American church was said in English and in Cantonese.
You know, he tried to bring the world together, to bring everybody together so there were no differences.
In Washington, D.C., Catholic Latinos paid tribute to the Pope.
He just cared about love and be together with God.
The Pope is also being honored at Temple Emmanuel in New York with a traditional memorial prayer in Hebrew.
This was a Pope who was linked to the Jewish people in cultural and historic ways, unlike any other Pope in history.
News of the Pope's death, reported live on the Arab television network Al Jazeera, prompted many Muslims to pay their respects.
Muslims and people around the world view him as an advocate for human rights, peace, and justice.
People of different faiths, different colors, different cultures in America, brought together by Pope John Paul II in life and death. John Siegenthaler, NBC News, New York.
We'll have more on the Pope and his special relationship with this city a little later on in the broadcast, but now to some of the other news of this day and an NBC News exclusive on that massive overnight attack on the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq that wounded dozens of U.S. troops. NBC News Pentagon correspondent Jim Miklaszewski is at Abu Ghraib tonight with the first pictures of the aftermath.
It was one of the fiercest attacks yet on Iraq's against U.S. forces in a year. It has senior military commanders asking, why here, why now, and what does it mean for the overall war? The Jordanian-born terrorist Abu Musab al-Zarqawi claimed credit for the attack, but military officials don't believe the enemy is strong enough to lose at Abu Ghraib.
Tomorrow in Washington, President Bush meets with the new president of Ukraine, Viktor Yushchenko, who you may recall survived that apparent assassination attempt by poisoning during his bitter campaign. Tonight, Yushchenko confirms the worst fears of a lot of people and tells NBC News that the former Ukrainian regime secretly sold missiles to Iran. NBC's Preston Mendenhall reports tonight from Kiev.
The sale of cruise missiles, Kiev.
And still ahead as we continue from Rome this Sunday evening, there could be a new controversy over Prince Charles and Camilla's wedding plans. But first tonight, NBC News In Depth, the future of the Catholic Church as the men chosen by John Paul II now choose his replacement. And later, how this city reacted to the loss of their friend, father, and grandfather.
The world mourns the passing of Pope John Paul II, his lasting legacy. Brian Williams reports from Rome, NBC Nightly News, Monday.
NBC News In Depth tonight, the future of the Roman Catholic Church. Tonight, the cardinals are arriving from all over the world for the secret election called the Conclave. NBC's Keith Miller, who has covered so much of the life of this pope, has more tonight on how the Conclave works and exactly what it is.
The College of Cardinals, the so-called princes of the church, are now running the Vatican. Is this conclave? NBC News, the Vatican.
And still ahead as we continue this Sunday night, the special relationship between the Pope and this city, and more of the other news of this day when we return from Rome.
John Paul II. For continuing coverage, stay with MSNBC, the news channel that's fair and accurate.
Back in the States tonight, this is opening night for Major League Baseball, and the season begins with a suspension, the first under baseball's new drug policy. Tampa Bay outfielder Alex Sanchez was benched for 10 days. He said he has never used steroids and vowed to fight this suspension. In Great Britain tonight, there are no plans to postpone Friday's royal wedding of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, even if the Pope is buried here on that day. The royal family might have another controversy on its hands. We get some answers tonight from NBC's Michael Oku.
For Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, to the idea of the wedding. Still, more than 90% are against the idea of Camilla ever being queen.
And we're back in a moment with an unusual Sunday here in Rome.
Of Pope John Paul II. Matt Lauer reports live from Vatican City. Plus, Raising Kids Today. Our special series starts tomorrow on Today. Dateline tonight.
We're back in the eternal city of Rome, which always considered itself the parish of John Paul II. The title of Pope also made him the Bishop of Rome. And here today, it feels as though a member of the family is gone. Look closely on this Sunday after Easter, and you'll find this entire city is thinking about their Pope.
Molto triste.
It's a very sad day for Rome.
Here they call him Il Papa, the Father. They know they should be celebrating his life, but for now, today, they are simply sad that he is gone. He was too much a part of their lives to simply vanish.
Every way I can perceive his personality and his presence.
Out in the open, away from St. Peter's Square, there are no tears visible. They say that's because of what he taught them.
We don't cry because he is an example of force or dignity.
So many say he brought them closer to their faith.
Before him, I was not so close to the church. After him, I can't say sure 100% that I am more close to the church.
The noon Mass at St. John Lateran Church, just 5 miles from the Vatican. Today, all the pews are filled. This is the Church of the Bishop of Rome, and for 26 years, that has meant John Paul II. As much as he belonged to this entire city, these truly were his parishioners.
I have a little photo, little picture with the Pope that touched my face.
Laura Nobile was just 8 years old on the day Karol Wojtyła was chosen as Pope. Today she was back here, telling her baby son Valerio that the Pope had gone to heaven.
In fact, he said the Pope is on the sky, alto, alto.
Throughout this day, tens of thousands made their way to the Vatican. And as day gave way to night, the people of Rome know it brings them another day closer to the burial of a family member. That is Nightly News for this Sunday. Dateline is next. I'm Brian Williams, reporting tonight from the Vatican, where we'll look for you again tomorrow night. Good evening from Rome.
On World News Tonight, an extraordinary pilgrimage to see the Pope. 1 million people have come so far. Refuse.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Reporting tonight, Elizabeth Vargas.
Good evening. Peter Jennings will be here at the end of the broadcast with a note about his health. We're still trying to figure out how insurgents carried out such a large attack. Hill Attorney General Alberto Gonzales urged Congress to renew the major provisions of the Patriot Act. That is the law expanding the government's power to conduct searches and surveillance of suspected terrorists. Mr. Gonzales said he was open to changing an especially controversial section known as the library provision because it could be used to secretly search for library records. The Federal Reserve Chairman Alan, driving prices higher are greater now than at any time in a generation. But he expressed hope the high price.
Baby girl, and it saved his life. Now, that baby is a 26-year-old woman, pregnant with a baby of her own. Tomorrow, the inspiring and remarkable story up close, only on World News Tonight.
We have an ABC News investigation tonight about the extent to which politicians. The great author Saul Bellow has died today. Often self-doubting, funny, and neurotic observers of the modern American way of life. Saul Bellow was 89. When we come back, we go back to Rome and the tailor who will suit up the new pope.
Think again.
Is there something you feel you need to say right now?
And don't miss the moving message from her father she never expected. Jane Fonda, Diane Sawyer. Start your day good to go only on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Back to
Rome.